Welcome back to another episode on the Expand Your Awareness 2.0 podcast. My name is Aaron Doughty, and today we're going to be talking a lot about masculinity. We're going to be talking about masculinity, understanding its dance with femininity, the masculine frame, the feminine frame, and understanding as well some of the biggest pitfalls I see with spiritual men. Now, even as I say spiritual men right now, you may be like, well, I'm going to use the word men or man, but realize this can also work for same-sex relationships and same-sex relationships as well. There will be normally somebody, if it's like a healthy sexual polarity in it, there'll be somebody that has more of a masculine energy and somebody that has more of a feminine energy. And that's so that it creates polarity. Polarity is very important in sexual attraction. And polarity basically is somebody has the more masculine frame, somebody has a more feminine frame. Think of it as what keeps people as friends and keeps people connected is what makes them alike. And what keeps people attracted is what makes them different. So if you have somebody that you are very similar to, and somebody that you're dating that you're very similar to, or notice that when you are dating someone, sometimes you guys start to become the same, that normally will cause a lack of that sexual polarity because then you're becoming too similar. And on the other side of what I want to talk about here is why sometimes spiritual men become more beta, what is called beta males. Think of it as an alpha male is somebody that is leading, and a beta male is somebody that maybe is following the alpha males. The beta males will very much play it safe. And what I want to really share in this video and in this episode is that you can be both a spiritual man or masculine energy, a spiritual person, and masculine at the same time. So this is something that maybe you feel like you want to send if you have a spiritual friend that maybe would gain value from something like this. I see it happen a lot in spirituality. When you start to become more spiritual, you start to become more mindful of other people. When I became spiritual, I became aware that there's more to life than just this material world. I started to tap more into meditation, more into my spirit. And what I noticed about myself is I started to become aware of some of the shadow aspects of myself. And one of those shadow aspects was becoming aware of a people-pleasing mentality that I had within myself, which is more of a feminine frame. And one of the things, understand as well, if you're a spiritual guy listening to this and you feel like you are more beta, realize it's not your fault and it is your fault at the same time. It's not your fault because you've probably grown up watching Disney movies. And Disney movies program people to believe that love has to be a certain way. Normally, it's some guy that's trying to get the affection or love and prove his worth to some female, to some feminine energy, and doing whatever he can in order to get it. And then what happens is we grow up, and in society and social conditioning, we see a lot of toxic masculinity and how shamed that is. And then we say, I want nothing to do with that. I'm going to be different. I'm going to be the significant nice guy. And if you're a nice guy, and I see a lot of spiritual men that are nice guys. The problem is that nice guys don't have polarity. Nice guys are actually developing and embodying a lot of feminine energy that's not turning on the feminine. Let me kind of give a general definition for both the masculine and the feminine of understanding what the different energies are. And remember, what the Hermetic principle says is that everything is gender. We all have both feminine and masculine energy inside of us. The issue comes with when a lot of guys become spiritual is that then it's almost like the masculinity goes away and the femininity comes, and it's in a way in the world, maybe for a long period of time there's been toxic masculinity. So maybe subconsciously we're trying to balance that out. But in general, what I think is healthy is if you are somebody that wants to have more masculine energy, leading with masculine energy, then you may want to become aware of a lot of what I share in this episode. Now, masculine energy is energy that is very leading. directional, plans, focused, determined, willpower, accomplishment. And think of true masculinity as very grounded, deep breathing, very still. That's masculine energy. And even now as I do this video, I'm able to really just tap into that masculine energy to even just explain it, become very still. That's masculine energy. Now, feminine energy, and also the masculine energy craves freedom. The feminine energy craves love. The feminine energy is more intuitive. The feminine energy wants to relax in the masculine frame. Feminine energy is very powerful. The feminine energy is very nurturing. It can create life. The feminine energy is compassionate, kind. And the difference in how they play together is what's happened in society is many women have learned to take on a more masculine frame and many men have learned to take on a feminine frame. What that ends with and ends in is a lot of lack of polarity. And understanding that a lot of times the reason the feminine will take on the masculine frame and the masculine will take on the feminine frame is because of some type of feminine or masculine wound inside of us. For example, for a good period of my life, I was feeling much more, I was working a 9-to-5 job I wasn't passionate about. I was just kind of going through the motions. And I'll kind of explain to you kind of my journey through learning this and how that's really transformed my life. Because my hope is that other men listening to this, or just, if it's whatever the dynamic is, able to help you also tap into your masculinity within yourself. Now, first off, realize your personality can change like that. Your personality is something we believe to be fixed. Our personality is a combination of what we think, feel, and act. And we think that's fixed. And remember, our personality creates our personal reality. The problem is that many guys or people in general think that their personality is completely fixed. It's not. You can change it based on a new meaning you give something, based on awareness and deciding to be in a new way. So for example, my journey through this process of me becoming more assertive, less of a people pleaser, less of a beta male, and more of somebody that is more alpha in my life in the understanding of me going in a certain direction, me being okay with having boundaries, me able to be decisive, and going from one to the other. I'm going to share with you how I did that. First off, let's look at some of the more shadow aspects of myself. Growing up between the ages of about 7 to 15 years old, you may already know my story, but from 7 to 15 years old, I had an ex-stepmom in my life that was very masculine. She was like having an army general. From 7 to 15 years old, my brother and I had almost no freedom whatsoever. We were normally locked out of the house doing yard work. If we wanted to go to band camp or some forensics debate tournament, we had to earn it. My dad was a firefighter. He wasn't home. He was home and gone off and on. So a lot of times we were with our ex-stepmom. Our ex-stepmom brainwashed us to not want to be around our real mom, because anytime we went to our real mom's house and came back, we got severely in trouble for something. My ex-stepmom in many ways was very narcissistic and very masculine. So from 7 to 15 years old, my dad divorced her when I was 15 years old. All of a sudden, my brother and I had all this freedom. But guess what happened after that? I kept attracting more masculine energy. Like, it wasn't masculine women. It was women that were trying to control me. Women that were, in a way, I was showing up as a beta male. So, of course, that was how the dynamic was. Now, here is what happened, though, between 7 to 15. My brother and I had to, in order for us to get by, we had to please our ex-stepmom by doing things, being a certain way, and having that kind of energy dynamic. We weren't allowed to have our own opinions. We weren't allowed to have our own ways of being. We weren't allowed to do what we wanted to do. We had to literally do whatever we were told. Now, because of that, we developed a people-pleasing mentality. And especially I did. I then would get rewarded. In a way, what happens, think of a people-pleasing mentality. If you're a people-pleaser, what it means is at a certain point in your past, you are most likely a parent pleaser. You had to do, be, or act a certain way in order to get love from them. And what happens is even after you've grown up and you're out of in your parents' household, you then assume that in order for you to achieve the love of someone else, you need to do something for them. You need to be a certain way in order for you then to be loved. So really, it's getting a sense of worthiness based on validation. Now look at that from a masculine-feminine frame. That is a very feminine type of mentality. There's no frame there. It's like you are the frame. I am trying to please you, because if I please you, then you will give me that validation. So for a good period, and even look at the first job I had. I had a job for 5 years selling Nordstrom's and women's shoes, and then after that, I had a job at Barney's, New York, selling women's shoes. It was a service job. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just pointing out that I was servicing, helping other people, and as I do that, I was getting a sense of validation. Now also, let's look at my dad. My dad is an amazing dad, no doubt about it. But as a masculine role model, my dad is the nicest guy you will ever meet. So nice. So the role model that I had growing up was a very masculine female in my life. That was my ex-stepmom. And then more of a feminine, nice guy dad. That was my role model. So ingrained inside of me was like, oh, this is the way you are in order to be as a masculine, as a man. Now, this is what nice guys are. Nice guys are also it's like a shadow complex. Nice guys believe that they're different. Nice guys are different than the alpha meanies. They're different than those mean guys. I'm different. I'm not like those guys that will just sleep with you and then let you be. I'm different. I'm significant. Now, the thing to remember about this is that, first off, there's a sense of significance that normally comes with the nice guy because the nice guy is different. He's set apart. The other thing to understand, though, is that the nice guy is also playing into that feminine frame. How can I please you? How can I make you happy? I'm super nice. Here is what the feminine really wants. The feminine wants the masculine to lead. The feminine wants the masculine to have boundaries. The feminine wants the masculine to have a vision that the masculine is moving towards, a purpose, a vision, a passion. But the other thing that the feminine wants is the feminine wants the masculine to make the choices, to make the decisions. Now, nice guys will make decisions based on what the feminine wants. Now, the key to this is understanding that in order for there to be the polarity, the masculine must have the vision and must fill up his own cup. The nice guy wants to get his cup filled up from the feminine, wants to be significant and different. And therefore, these shadow aspects that I'm talking about are what keeps the spiritual guys in the feminine frame. The most important part of being in a masculine frame is having a frame. Is having a way of being that you are, and this is the way it is. This is your reality. That allows the feminine to relax in the confidence that you exude. That allows the feminine to relax in her own femininity. But what you see in society right now is guys and couples that are like, what do you want to do for dinner, honey? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. Let's get on Yelp and look for 55 minutes and then finally make a choice. And what that is forcing the feminine to do is to then make the choices and get into the masculine, which then kills polarity. So if you want to become a more masculine man or just energy in general, remember I'm using that term, but if you want to embody more of that, what you have to do is realize how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you find that you're lacking polarity in your love and your relationships, you may be lacking polarity in your own life, which means that you may not have your own vision that you're moving towards. You might not have something that you're creating for yourself, and boundaries as to what's okay and what's not okay. So for me, I moved into a much more masculine frame of my life when I started to create daily videos on YouTube. Friends would be like, hey, come hang out. Sorry, bro. I got this vision that I'm moving towards. Even some woman I was talking to. Sorry, I'm moving in this direction. That actually caused more attraction, funny enough. But the key to this is understanding that if you're working a job that you hate, if you don't have a vision for yourself, then that's going to exude out of you. And that's going to maybe cause you more easily to move into that feminine frame. Now, masculine does not mean that you have to be like this edgy person that's like super, super competitive. That's unhealthy masculine. A healthy masculine energy is about going in a certain direction, having a vision for yourself, moving in that direction. I was making daily videos on YouTube while I was working a 9-to-5 job, and I decided I'm going to do this every single day until I'm a full-time YouTuber, until I'm doing what I love full-time. And I held to that frame. That's my frame. And then I started to become successful. Within 3 to 6 months, I quit my 9-to-5 job. Now I've done what I do for the last 3-4 years now, and I love my life. And I've created this gravity for myself. I've created this energy, and it's allowed me to more so tap into that masculine energy. Here's the interesting thing, though. Even though I had a very masculine business, I realized that in relationships, sometimes I would fall into that feminine pattern. Now, why was that? Well, it was because as I looked... I did more shadow work is really what it was. I realized that my dad was a nice guy, is a nice guy, and I was modeling that, thinking that was natural, that's the way it works. Not understanding this one very powerful idea behind attraction. If you're a guy listening to this or somebody that's more masculine listening to this, and you find that you've lost the sense of polarity, that sexual polarity in your relationships, this is a game changer right here. This is an idea that I think I learned from a guy named Robert Glover. He has a book, and in it, he talked about a positive emotional... It's not even in a book. I think I listened... I don't remember. I listened on a podcast or something. But anyways, called positive emotional tension or negative emotional tension. The idea is that what the feminine wants is the feminine wants tension. Sounds counterintuitive, right? Some people will hear this go, what are you talking about? It means tension does not have to be negative. The feminine wants some sort of tension. When the feminine sees the bad guy, the cool guy that just doesn't care. Maybe he talks to all the other women like this, or like, you know, what women call, you know, the idea of a fuckboy or something like that, right? Even though they may logically know, this may not be the most wise decision, what they realize is they like the tension that creates. And what women want is they want negative emotional tension or positive emotional tension. Their brain doesn't know the difference. Now, let me share with you what this is. Negative emotional tension is when a guy is maybe arguing with her, is even when a guy can become physically abusive towards her. This is why many women will continue to go back to somebody that is negatively treating them that way, because they're still getting that tension. Now, this isn't something I'm recommending at all. I'm just pointing out the obvious part of this is women are attracted to that tension because that tension creates polarity. Now, the key to this is understanding positive emotional tension. Positive emotional tension is when the masculine tells the feminine what to do, is able to touch and be very touchy-feely. So it's, what are the three? I think there's 3 of them. There's touching, telling, and I think there was one more. But anyways, the idea is what the feminine wants is the positive emotional tension is if the guy's like, listen, we're going here to eat tonight. This is what we're going to go do. Very assertive. And telling the feminine gets turned on by that. And if the feminine in you, if you're a woman or a feminine listening to this right now, and you think it doesn't, then that's probably the masculine that's been activated that says that it doesn't. The feminine wants to relax in the masculine frame if it's a true feminine energy. Now, touching is another form of this, because when a masculine is able to touch the feminine, it's one way of with connecting, but it shows a level of assertiveness. It shows a level of confidence that many times is exuded subconsciously. But I would say that the frame is the most important thing in the masculine. Now that creates tension. If something is okay, for example, if the masculine's like, this is okay, this isn't okay, and there's those rules, that creates tension. Secretly, deep down, the feminine energy loves that. And there's even something that women will do that are called shit tests. Women many times will do shit tests, even when they're seeing if they want to date a guy. Shit tests is where they'll say something to him to see if they'll break his frame. They may tell him to go do something. And if the guy breaks his frame and does it, then subconsciously that says to the woman who's just shit testing, says that this guy isn't really the masculine frame he's pretending to be, isn't really leading. The most important thing in a masculine energy is to lead and is to have a frame that is confident, that has a certain vision that the feminine can then relax in. And in order to do this and to become aware of it, what you have to do is you have to just mainly become aware of the times in your past when you may have been shunned for doing so, shunned for having a vision, shunned for going in a certain direction. And as you become aware of all these things, that's when your life will begin to change in a very powerful way. But the key to this is really doing the shadow work. And the way you do the shadow work is you integrate what is called your shadow. You go through a process of asking certain questions, of doing certain meditations, and then you give yourself the love that maybe you lacked growing up. So as I have gone through my own process of integrating my own shadow and then realizing that I'm a very masculine person at my core. But there are times when that begins to slip away when I allow it to. And what I do is I have to get back to that core and remember that. So the way I do that is I remember my own boundaries and creating that tension, and that tension is not a bad thing. Being assertive, making choices. I enjoy that. One time I was dating this chick that I dated for about a year on and off, but it was a time in my life when I was the most aware of my own masculinity. Because she was so feminine as well. It was very easy for me to be masculine because she was so feminine. This chick I dated, she was she had such a feminine energy that she would not when we went to order food, the first date I ever took her out on, she would not even order her own food. She looked at me and said, "You order for me." "What, can you order for me? I don't know what I want." I said, "Okay." So then I kind of decided what I wanted too. I was like, "Oh, I'll eat some of that food too." So I would order. So every time I took her out, I would order for her. And she was not able to make any choices whatsoever. And in a way, what that did for me is that actually helped me to more so be in that masculine frame. There was also the more polarity in there than I think there was a lot of polarity in that relationship. And the reason being is because it was also easy for me to be in that way. Kind of because that was just how the dynamic was. She was super was not able to, super emotional chick, super not able to make choices at all, not decisive at all. And maybe there's a shadow aspect where maybe she could learn to make a little bit more choices and become empowered. I'm not saying that that's the answer for the feminine, but what I'm saying is I could definitely see that tension, and when that could be a very positive thing in ways. So the thing with the nice guy is the nice guy will do anything he can to reduce any tension, positive or negative. The nice guy wants you to be happy, wants you to what do you want to eat? What about you? What about you? What about you? And lacks that boundary. The key to this is being aware of that and then creating that tension within yourself because you're actually doing what you want to do. What I've realized about myself is even though I'm very masculine in my business, what I've had to learn to do is to do what I want to do even in relationships. And a lot of times that would then be attractive to the person I'm with. It's a very interesting energy dynamic that happens. But as a masculine, fill up your own cup. Do what you want to do. Still doesn't mean you become a narcissist by any means. But it means that you develop gravity for what you want, knowing that what you want, and when you're happy, you're then exuding a level of confidence that then the feminine picks up on, and then the feminine can actually relax. But the key to this is healing and integrating your shadow. And if you haven't seen, I do have a step-by-step process that will show you exactly how you can integrate what is called your shadow, let go of past emotions, let go of past attachments, so that you become emotionally free. And you can check that out at emotionaltransformationprocess.com. Emotionaltransformationprocess.com. That will show you step by step how to go through, integrate what is called your shadow so that you become emotionally free and also to raise your vibrational set point. When you do that, you will become more aware of all of these things I'm talking about, and you will feel more empowered than ever before. It's a very powerful way to integrate the unbalanced masculine and feminine energies inside of you as well, because they're just swimming up underneath the surface. So like I said, if you join right now, you'll see bonuses that are included there. You'll see this at the cheapest price you'll ever see it. I'm going to do that as this episode comes out. So go to emotionaltransformationprocess.com. Check that out and realize that the masculine energy inside of you can be healed, and you can also heal the feminine energy inside of you. That's what I had to learn to do as well, that people-pleasing mentality. I had to almost nurture myself. I had to do a meditation where I did that, and that's kind of what I teach in the emotional transformation process as well. But in general, become aware of these different aspects of yourself and see how you could lead more so in your life. How could you create that positive emotional tension? Positive emotional tension by having boundaries, by being assertive, by knowing what you want, by telling, by making the choices and making it easy for the feminine to be in her feminine instead of making her become more masculine by making choices. And understand that being spiritual and being masculine is totally okay. All you have to do is become aware of it and decide that you are the star of your own movie. That you are able to lead and you are able to be in that way. And by doing that, you will have your own gravity and it'll be very attractive. You'll find it's easier to attract a true feminine energy because of you being in that frame. So, with that being said, let me know what you think of this episode. If you want me to do more episodes on feminine, masculine energy, go ahead and screenshot this on your iPhone if you have an iPhone or just iPhone in general. Screenshot this episode if it's on Spotify or iTunes. Share it on Instagram. I'll be resharing those as well. And it'll let me know to keep doing more also. Other than that, review the podcast as well if you haven't already. That'd really mean the world to me. It lets me know to keep on doing these podcasts. You can review it on iTunes. I'd really appreciate that. And other than that, as always, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Peace, much love, and namaste.